everyone, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you're all doing really well. Doing pretty well myself because, well, it's that time of the week where I get to show you a new project, and this is no exception. Today, I'm going to show you how to crochet the Granny Trellis Shawl. It is super duper easy, customizable, works up fast, and it is lacy and beautiful and light, perfect for the oncoming warm season. And for this project, I used Mandala Bonus Bundle in the colorway of Chewy, and I don't have the yarn band with me, but it is 1,081 yards. It is a weight of 3. So for this particular project, I used, this is a 5mm size H crochet hook to go along with the 3 weight of yarn, and I didn't even use the entire cake of yarn. In fact, I've got leftovers. Yeah, I have quite a bit. I would say this is perhaps, I want to say maybe a third of the cake left over, and I know that on my last shawl tutorial, I was getting a lot of questions about yardage and the dimensions of my finished project. Well, I got you covered this time. So this particular project that I did, it is about 36 inches from the bottom to the neckline and about 84 inches in width from side to side. And I didn't even use the entire 1,181 yards. No, I still had quite a bit left over. I could have kept going, but I felt, I got far enough along with it. Now, keep in mind, of course, the reason why I don't usually give, specifications about yardage and size is because, well, everybody has a different gauge and a different tension. So even if we use the same yarn and the same hook size, we could end up with, well, different sized pieces. But for those of you that were wondering, there you go. But yeah, you can use whatever yarn you want, whatever hook size that works for you. But I always like to, tell you what it is that I did in case if you want to try to duplicate the results. And I think that the results, well, they are pretty darn spiffy and gorgeous. And I really, really, really like how this came out. And so it is, like I said, very, very simple. We're going to go through it together, and, well, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Okay, so I'm not going to quite do this by rows how I usually do it. It's going to be more of sections. So for the first section, going to start off with some granny stitches. Now, for those of you that are familiar with how to make a, traditional triangular granny shawl, this is going to be old hat. So going to put timestamps where you can skip ahead if you want to. That's quite all right. I've done this sort of thing a bunch of times on this channel, but for those of you that would like a refresher, well, keep watching. So going to start off, of course, with a slip knot as we usually do. Then going to chain 4 and slip to create a ring. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then slip stitch to that first chain to create a ring, and we're going to work within that ring. So slip stitch, there we go, and then we're going to start in with the granny stitches. So going to start off by chaining 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's going to count as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. Now into this ring that we created, we're going to do 3 doubles as our first cluster. It's 1, 2, and 3. Then for the center spine, chain 3, and then 3 more doubles into that center ring. chain one, and one more double into that ring. There we go. And so that is our first row. And for my piece that I showed you just before, I went in intervals, I guess that would be the word, of 3 grannies, then 3 trellis, then 3 grannies, then 3 trellis, back, forth, back, forth. Now, the ratio, that's ultimately totally up to you. You could have more granny than trellis, more trellis than granny. Really, well, whatever floats your boat. But we're going to go into another 2 rows of granny, just because that's what I did for my practice piece there, my demo. So let's keep going. So going to chain up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn, and then into this chain 1 space here, 3 doubles. Okay, and then chain 1, and then into the center spine, 3 doubles, chain 3, 3 doubles. Now, I do know that some people will do a different number of chains at the center spine, or they will not do chains in between their clusters. And with some projects that does work. Now, for this one, I am not 100% certain that it would work because of the tension with the trellis stitching later. So it's not something that I've tried, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't try it. You know, experimentation is how we grow as creative people. So if you want to, give it a whirl. So I did my 3 doubles, my chain 3. I need 3 more doubles into this chain 3 space. And then chain 1, and then into this chain 1 space at the end, 3 doubles. Oops. And then chain 1, and then 1 more double into that chain 1 space. Okay, so that's 2 rows done. We just need to do 1 more row. So going to, again, chain up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn. And then into the chain 1 space, 3 doubles. Chain 1, 3 doubles into the next chain space. Chain 1, and then into the center spine, 3 doubles, chain 3, 3 doubles. Now, of course, also, if you do more trellis than granny for your piece, you are going to use a lot less yarn. That is another thing to keep in mind. I used about the same because for every bit of granny, I did a bit of trellis, and it was pretty much even for the most part. And so after doing my 3 doubles, chain 3, 3 doubles, chain 1, 3 doubles into the chain space. The only exception, of course, is that I ended my piece with actually a total of 5 rows of granny, because I thought it would finish off the bottom edge nicely. So got my 3 doubles, chain 1, and then into that chain 1 space, 3 doubles, chain 1, 1 double. And that will be it for our first section of granny stitches. Chain 1 and 1 double. And there you go. So like I said, you can keep going with your section of granny stitches if you want to, but I'm going to leave off here and, well, we shall get started in with the trellis stitching. Let's go. Okay, so for the second section, the trellis section, going to actually start off with a chaining of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that is going to count as a double crochet and a chain 3 space, figuratively speaking. Don't worry, you'll understand later. So from here, going to do a single crochet into our first chain space here. And then quite simply going to work our way across with a bunch of chain 5 spaces and single crochets. So chain 5, 1, oops, 2, 3, 4, and 5, single into the chain space, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and single in the chain space, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now, when you reach the center spine, as I call it, going to go into that chain 3 space with a single, then chain 5 and single into the same center spine space. So chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single into the same space, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single into the chain space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there we go, single into the chain space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single into the chain space, and this last part is important, going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and double crochet into the same space. So like I said, when we first started, I said that the chaining of 6 counted as a double crochet and chain 3 space. Well, that is how that makes sense now. So that is the first row of the trellis. Let's do 2 more. So again, chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and turn, single into this first space here, chain 5, single into the chain 5 space here, chain 5 again, single in the next space. So as you can see, this works up really fast because, you know, the kinds of stitches that I really like are where we're working into stitch spaces, not into actual stitches, and this is no exception. I love this. And then we've reached the center spine again, so chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, doing a single into the center spine space, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single into the same space because it's the center spine, chain 5, single into the next space, chain 5, single in the next space, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next space, and we're almost at the very end, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single into this last space. We still need to create another loop, so 1, 2, 3, and then double crochet into that same last space. And there you go. Let's do one more row together, and then that will be it for the trellis stitches for this second section. So chaining up of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and turn, single into this first space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we've reached the center spine once again. So single into that space, chain 5, single into the same space, and then continue working our way this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single in the next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single into the last one, and then got to finish up with our chaining of 3, oops, and double crochet into that same space. And there you go. So in a very quick amount of time, very short amount of time, we made quick progress. We have a section of granny and a section of the trellis stitching. So now we're going to go back to the granny stitching, and things will come full circle, so to speak. So let's get to it. Okay, so for the next section, which is going to be a granny section, going to, like we did down here, going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, turn the work, and into this first chain space, 3 doubles, there we go, chain 1, 3 doubles into the next chain space, and so on and so forth until we reach the center spine. So this works really, really fast. Chain 1, 3 doubles in the next space, and so on and so forth. Chain 1, 3 doubles in the next space, chain 1, 3 doubles in the next space. Oops. There we go. Chain 1, 3 doubles in the next space. So, quite frankly, this is a project that you can very much go on autopilot with. So, always a nice thing sometimes. Anyway, chain 1, and then, so this is the center spine. So, into the center spine space, it's going to be 3 doubles, chain 3, 3 doubles, just like we did down here. So 3 doubles. Chain 3. And 3 doubles. By the way, I just recently got a new phone, which, comes with it a new camera, because I always do all of my recording on my phone. And I don't know about you, but I do notice a difference with the quality of the video and the brightness anyway, because the lighting in my room is atrocious. But I think I've noticed a difference. If you have noticed a difference, and it is a favorable difference, please let me know in the comments section. Because, quite frankly, I cannot afford fancy schmancy recording equipment. I make do with what I have, but I did need a new phone, so there you go. Anyway, just a little side note. So you just keep going, working your way into each space with 3 doubles, and then separate them with chain 1 spaces. And then you can do as many of these granny rows as you want to. Me personally, I'm a fan of odd numbers when it comes to a lot of crochet and knit work. If I have a choice between an odd number or an even number, I'm more than likely going to pick an odd number because it has sort of like a central focal point, if you will. So we've reached the last of our chain spaces. So into that last one, it's going to be 3 doubles, chain 1, 1 double, just like how we started our row. So I've got my 3 doubles, chain 1, and then 1 double, like so. And then, so do 2 more rows of our granny. Let's do another one together, shall we? Chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn. And then into the chain 1 space, 3 doubles. And then into each chain 1 space, 3 doubles. Separate them by chain 1 spaces. So really, this is sort of a merger of 2 stitches together to create something a little bit new, a little bit fun, and I say, why not? You're just working your way across. Now, as far as color choices or yarn choices, well, because you're really only working into stitch spaces, if you have some sort of a fuzzy yarn like a mohair or a boucle or something very frisky, because this is a very clean yarn. But if you have a very frisky yarn, well, this would work out well because you don't have to worry about working into specific stitches so much. As far as color, well, this colorway, it's very subdued and it's very subtle, but I like it. You can, of course, go as subdued or as crazy as you want to, whatever floats your boat, because the stitch is quite simple. I would say go crazy. Now, what would look, I think, rather striking is if you did all of the granny stitches in one color of yarn and all of the trellis stitches in another color of yarn. I think that could look, pretty effective. So again, we've reached the center spine here. So 3 doubles, chain 3, 3 doubles, and then just work your way down the other side, just like we went up the side. Like for instance, if you used a solid color for the trellis and a variegated yarn for the granny, that could look cool. Or maybe, maybe using like a black or like a really dark color for the trellis and then like a really vibrant color for the granny. That could look pretty cool, I think. Some sort of contrast, not just in the stitches, but also in the color, maybe the temperature of the color, like a very warm versus a very cool color contrast, or tonally, perhaps. The world is your oyster. Seriously, crack it open. You might find a pearl, but you gotta play around with things. You gotta experiment. So just going to work my way to the end of this row. And that, that is essentially it, really. As far as working X number of rows in granny, X number of rows in trellis. The only thing I would suggest, quite frankly, is ending your project with granny stitches, because I think that it would frame your project a little bit better, because the trellis stitches, they seem to sort of like compress themselves a little bit, and the weight of the granny stitches on the bottom edge would help to stretch them out a little bit more. That is just my own personal opinion on that one. Take it for what you will. So at the very end here, in this last chain 1 space, it's 3 doubles, chain 1, 1 double. There we go. And shaboom. Okay, so in a very short amount of time, we made some pretty good progress, I think. Yeah. Okay, so I did another row of the granny stitching off camera. And, well, because I love spending time with you guys and I love being thorough, we're going to start in with another section of the trellis. So, that being said, but I would end the project on some granny stitches. I just think it frames the piece nicely. It's just how I am. What can I say? So, going to, as we did down here, going to chain up 6 because we need the double crochet and chain 3 space, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and turn, single into that first chain space, and then chain 5 and single all the way across. It's that easy. Now, one thing that I did not mention, I do mention this often, one thing that I did not mention is that if you are going to use different colors of yarn, which I think it would look really cool from a stash buster perspective, sure. Keep in mind, if you're going to use different colors of yarn, use the same weight of yarn, preferably the same brand even, because otherwise you might run into some trouble as far as the deformation and possible warping and buckling of your project, and you don't want that, because if you use a thicker weight with a thinner weight, it is going to create distortion. Okay, that is unfortunate, but you know, it does happen if you use different weights of yarn in the same project. And even if both labels say that they are the same weight, the same thickness, they might not be the same. So keep that in mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we've reached the center spine. So single into that space, chain 5, and then single into that same space, that same center spine space, and then chain 5 again. And single into the chain spaces, working our way down this side. Also, another brief tip is if you're going to be using different yarns, be sure that they are the same fiber content. Because if you're using acrylic and wool, well, they're going to have different care instructions. And if you say throw it in the dryer, well, the wool will react, whereas the acrylic will not. So something to keep in mind. You know, for those of you that may not know, you know, knowledge is power, but sharing is caring, and I don't want you to run into any sort of pitfalls because I forgot to say something. But stash busting is definitely cool. But the results may not be cool if you don't do it right. Okay, and we're almost at the end here. And into this last space, single. And then we need that final loop at the end, so chain 3 and double into that same space. And then so if you wanted to keep going, you would chain up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and flip, single into that first space, and then chain 5 and single your way across this way once again. So really, that is all there is to it. You know, I think you guys get the general gist and idea by now, but you know, like I said, I want it to be thorough. I like spending time with you guys. I like chit-chatting, you know, it's what I do. And it's really all there is to it. So you can, of course, do wider or narrower bands of the granny or the trellis, either or. You know, make it your own. And then I just want to get up to the center spine again, and then I think we'll call it a day, maybe. There we go. Almost there. So center spine right here. So chain 5. Single in that space. Chain 5. Single into the same space because it's the center spine. And then chain 5 and, well, work your way down this way. And single chain 5, and single, and so on and so forth. And so just keep going, doing as many of the trellis rows as you want, and then revert back to the granny, back forth, forth back, etc., etc. And, well, there you go. Alrighty, my dears, so that's going to conclude today's tutorial on the Granny Trellis Shawl. I really hope that you liked it, and if you did, please give a little thumbs up button down below because you know that I appreciate your appreciation. And as always, I want to hear from you in the comments section. Let me know what sort of yarns, what sorts of colorways, what are you going to be using? Always interested in hearing about your creative journey and your process. Also, what did you think about the idea of using, different colors for the trellis versus the granny, etc., etc.? And also, yes, constructive feedback on, the new footage as far as my camera and phone are concerned. I feedback is a good thing. Constructive, preferable. All right. That being said, thank you again so much for joining me today. I hope that you liked it. And, well, you know what to do until next time, right? I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, stay stitching, and please stay safe. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody, and have a great day.